My name is Margaret Nolan, and the morning my daughter-in-law told me this wasn't my house anymore, I felt the ground tilt under my feet. She stood on the porch, coffee cup in hand, calm as a Sunday prayer, and said, "Mom, this is our house now." I remember the sound of the sprinkler still clicking beside me, watering the mums by the front walk like nothing had changed except everything had. I froze. The words didn't sound angry, just factual, like she was confirming the weather. I looked past her into the living room, the one with the fireplace I'd kept burning every Christmas since my husband died. The couch was different now, her couch, her colors, her throw pillows. My photos were gone from the mantel. It was like the house had quietly learned to live without me. People always talk about betrayal as something loud, but mine came in a whisper, spoken over coffee. I didn't yell or ask questions. I just nodded because that's what you do. When you're from Indiana, you swallow hard, you smile, and you go back to watering the flowers. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, the one I'd sanded and stained with my own hands 20 years ago, and stared at the mortgage papers in my file folder. Every payment receipt was there. I'd kept them all neat as prayer cards. 20 years of shifts at the nursing home, 2 decades of careful budgets, skipped vacations, patched tires, and small prayers before the bills cleared. When my husband David passed, Ethan was 15. I remember standing in the cold bank office, signing my name on the refinance forms, the pen shaking. The man across the desk said, "You're brave to take this on alone." I said, "It's not bravery, it's home." That was the last time anyone in that building looked me in the eye like I mattered. I worked double shifts for 3 years after. Missed Christmas once, Easter twice. When Ethan graduated, I bought him a used Ford pickup and said, "Drive careful, son. Every mile cost me a night's sleep." He hugged me and said, "Someday I'll make it up to you." I believed him. When he married Kelly, I was proud. She was polite, efficient, the kind of woman who called people ma'am. They asked to move in after their first apartment lease ended. "Just for a while," Kelly said, "to save for a down payment." I said yes, of course. What mother wouldn't? At first it was nice coffee in the mornings, laughter down the hall, the house full again. But little things started changing. My floral curtains were replaced by gray ones. The photos of Ethan's childhood disappeared, replaced with modern prints of oceans and city skylines. Kelly said it'll make the space feel bigger. I didn't argue. I tried to stay useful. I cooked dinner, folded laundry, paid the gas bill when it came late. But one night, I came home from my book club and saw my favorite chair, the one David used to sit in, pushed into the garage. Kelly said she was rearranging. That word became her favorite weapon. The real cut came the following week. I overheard Kelly talking to Ethan in the living room. "We should change the deed before something happens." I stopped in the hallway, holding a basket of towels. Before something happens. What did that even mean? The next morning, a crisp envelope appeared on the kitchen counter. "Just paperwork," Ethan said when I asked. "For tax purposes." I opened it later alone. It was a property transfer. My name would move from owner to co-signer. I folded it quietly and placed it in my Bible. I didn't confront them that day. I've learned over a lifetime that some storms are better faced after they've passed. Instead, I smiled and made dinner just like my mother did when my father came home late, smelling of whiskey. You learn to survive by pretending everything is fine. That evening, I sat on the porch swing under the fading light. Across the street, the neighbors' kids rode bikes through leaves. I thought of Ethan as a boy, his hair sweaty, under a baseball cap, running up these same steps with scraped knees and muddy shoes. Back then, this porch was safety. Now it felt like a waiting room. Kelly came out with a mug of tea, her nails painted the color of new money. "You should rest more," she said. Her voice sweet but firm. "We can handle things now." Handle things. She didn't mean bills or chores, she meant my life. After she went inside, I whispered into the quiet yard, "We're all just guests, aren't we?" The mums nodded in the breeze like they agreed. That night I couldn't sleep. I walked through each room, touching the walls, the furniture, the memories. It's strange how a house can forget who it belongs to. I ended the night in the kitchen, staring at the table once more. There was a note on it in Kelly's neat handwriting. "Don't forget to sign the papers." I folded it, slipped it under the stack of receipts, and turned off the light. Tomorrow, I told myself, I'll decide what to do. But deep down, I already knew this wasn't just about a house. It was about the moment a mother realizes her son stopped being hers a long time ago. The next morning, the air was thick with the kind of silence that makes even the clock sound guilty. Kelly had already left for work. Ethan sat at the table, scrolling through his phone, coffee steaming beside him. For a second, he looked like a teenager again. The same slouched posture, the same frown, when life didn't move fast enough. "Morning," I said, keeping my voice even. He looked up, smiled faintly. "Morning, Mom." Then back to his phone. No eye contact. That was new. I poured myself some coffee and leaned against the counter. The kitchen used to smell like bacon and pancake syrup. Now it smelled like whatever candle Kelly lit that week. This one was called Cedar Calm. I missed the smell of real life. "Ethan," I said, "I found the papers." He froze for half a second, then cleared his throat. "Oh yeah, that. Kelly mentioned it. It's just something our accountant suggested. Makes things easier later." Easier for who, I asked quietly. He looked at me, then finally. "For all of us, Mom. You don't have to worry about it." I wanted to tell him I hadn't worried about much until Kelly moved in. But the words felt heavy. I sat down across from him instead. "Do you remember the day your father and I closed on this house?" He frowned. "Not really. I was a kid." "I remember," I said. "It was raining. The banker told us we could back out, that it was too risky. Your father said this house will be our roots." And we never looked back. Ethan smiled awkwardly, the way people do when they know you're not just talking about the past. "Mom," he said, "you know I love you, right, Kelly? And I just want to help manage things. You shouldn't have to worry about property taxes or insurance." I nodded, but I heard what he didn't say. "We want control." After he left for work, I wandered through the house. The sun cut sharp lines across the carpet. Kelly's decor made the place look like a catalog page, cold, symmetrical, soulless. My photos were gone from the mantel, replaced with silver frames that held no memories of me. I found the old shoebox I'd kept in the hall closet. Inside were birthday cards, Ethan's baby shoes, and the keys David had used when we first moved in. The metal was worn smooth from years of use. I held them tight, feeling a pulse of something old and familiar, ownership, pride, loss. That night, Kelly made dinner salmon with something green I couldn't pronounce. She set the table for 3, but didn't pour me wine. I noticed that. She chatted about a new co-worker, about real estate prices. I said little, just watched her hands. When Ethan excused himself to take a call, she finally looked up. "You didn't sign the papers," she said. "No," I replied. She tilted her head. "Why?" "Because this is still my house." Her lips twitched into something like a smile, but her eyes didn't move. "Of course it is, Mom. But we have to plan for the future." I wanted to tell her I had spent my entire life planning for the future, that every night shift, every bill, every cold winter morning I'd scraped ice off my windshield was my version of planning. But I just said, I've seen what happens when people sign things too quickly." She sighed, collecting plates a little too loudly. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "I imagine that's what people always say when they're about to take something that isn't theirs," I answered softly. The rest of the meal passed in silence. I went to bed early, but didn't sleep. The words replayed in my head. "This is our house now." The next morning, I woke to the sound of laughter downstairs. Kelly's mother had come over. I heard her say, "You've done so much with this place, it looks brand new." "Yes," Kelly said. "We've really made it our own." I sat at the top of the stairs unseen, clutching the railing. The phrase hit me like cold water our own. By afternoon, I couldn't stand the walls anymore. I grabbed my keys and drove into town. Ended up at the diner on Maple Street, where everyone still called me Han. The waitress, Patty, asked if I wanted the usual. I nodded, and when she set down the coffee, I said, "How much do you think a woman's worth when her name's on the deed, but her son says it isn't her home?" Patty blinked. "Depends who's asking." "Someone who's about to find out," I said. That night, I came home to find Kelly on the phone again, her voice low, rehearsed. "Yes, we'll have the documents signed this week," she said. When she saw me, she ended the call fast. "Who was that?" I asked. "Just the insurance guy," she replied. I didn't respond. I walked to the fireplace and placed the shoebox of old memories on top. "You might want to leave some space up here," I said. History has a way of taking up room. She stared at me, trying to read what I meant. But I just smiled, calm and polite, the way women in Indiana do when they've already decided what comes next. That night, I opened my Bible and tucked the unsigned papers inside again. If Kelly wanted a signature, she'd have to earn it. For the first time in a long while, I slept soundly. The morning after that quiet defiance, the house felt like a stage where everyone had already rehearsed their lines, except me. Kelly was polite, Ethan distracted, and the air between us hummed with something that wasn't peace. She had made cinnamon rolls store-bought, still in the tin. I poured my coffee and waited for her to say what she needed to say. She finally looked up. "Mom, we really should finish the paperwork. It's just practical." "Practical?" I repeated. "Like moving the chair or repainting the walls." Ethan came in, sensing the temperature drop. "Let's not start again." I smiled. I didn't start anything. After breakfast, I drove into town the long way through Maple Grove, where the houses looked like memories that had aged better than people. I stopped by the hardware store, where I'd bought the first can of paint for this house. Sam, the owner, still remembered. "Margaret Nolan. Haven't seen you in forever." I told him I was just looking. Truth was, I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe a reminder that I'd built something once, something that still had my fingerprints on it. That night, the papers were back on the counter. This time, a sticky note read, "We'll need this signed by Friday." I turned it over and wrote beneath, "Not this Friday. Not ever." The next day, Ethan cornered me on the porch. "Mom, Kelly thinks you don't trust us." I looked at him. Trust isn't the same as surrender, Ethan. He rubbed the back of his neck like he used to do before tests. "You're making this difficult." I almost laughed. "You think this is difficult? Try raising a boy alone on 2 shifts and 1 paycheck." He opened his mouth, then closed it. The silence said enough. That evening, clouds gathered over Indiana, thick and gray. When the rain started, it came fast, rattling windows dripping through the corner of the roof that had needed fixing for months. Kelly panicked. Ethan ran for buckets. I stood in the doorway watching the water trace lines down the walls I had painted 20 years earlier. By morning, part of the ceiling in the living room had sagged, soaked through. Kelly was on the phone, frantic, trying to reach the insurance agent. "They said the policy doesn't list our names," she told Ethan. "It's under your mom's." He turned to me. "You didn't transfer it." I sipped my coffee. No one asked nicely. They spent the day making calls, realizing that every account, utilities, taxes, title still ran through me. It wasn't spite. It was survival. When the repairman came, he said, "Who's the homeowner?" Kelly started to answer, but I stepped forward. "I am." The man nodded. "Then you'll need to sign here for the estimate." Kelly's face went pale. Ethan looked away. I signed slowly, pressing hard enough for the pen to leave an imprint. That night, Kelly stayed in the guest room, and Ethan sat with me on the porch. The storm had cleared, leaving the air heavy and clean. He said, "We just wanted to make things easier." "I know," I said, "but easier for you isn't always fair for me." He nodded quiet for a long time. "Kelly didn't mean to push you out. She's scared we'll never really have something of our own." I looked out over the yard where puddles mirrored the sky. Owning something doesn't make it yours, Ethan. Caring for it does. He didn't argue. For the first time in weeks, he just listened. When I went inside, the papers were gone from the counter. The next morning, Kelly made real coffee, my brand, not hers. We didn't speak much, but the silence was softer. A few days later, I called the insurance company myself and arranged the repairs. When the work crew came, Kelly offered to help move furniture. I let her. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. Weeks passed. The roof was fixed, the new paint dried, and autumn came early. One afternoon, I found Kelly standing by the fireplace, staring at the old photo I'd hung back up, the one of Ethan, as a boy holding a baseball glove bigger than his face. She didn't say a word. She just left it there. That night, as the wind rustled the trees, I wrote a note and slid it under their door. It said, "The house is still mine, but the home is ours if you want it to be." No response came, but I didn't need one. Sometimes peace isn't announced. It just settles in. Weeks later, Ethan joined me on the porch again. "You were right," he said. "We're all just guests, huh?" I smiled. "The good kind, I hope." He laughed softly. "Yeah, the kind who know how to take care of what isn't really theirs." I looked at the house, our house, and felt something I hadn't in months, belonging, not ownership. A week later, the mornings grew cooler, and the maples along Birch Lane started to turn. I'd always loved that sound, leaves scraping across the driveway like dry whispers. But lately, even the wind felt cautious in this house. Kelly was quieter too. I noticed her stepping lightly, like she didn't want to wake something sleeping under the floorboards. Ethan tried to fill the silence with small talk, weather, work, football, but it never reached the air between us. One morning, I caught her standing by the kitchen window holding my old mug, the one with the faded roses. She didn't see me. For a second, she looked almost like the young woman I thought she was when she first married Ethan, unsure, hopeful, just trying to belong. Later that day, she left an envelope on the counter. Inside was a handwritten note. "I'm sorry if we made you feel unwanted. I didn't mean to." I read it twice. It wasn't much, but in a family, sometimes one quiet line can patch more than 1,000 explanations. That afternoon, Ethan asked me if I wanted to ride along to the hardware store. We hadn't done that in years. On the drive, he said, "Kelly feels terrible." "I know," I said. "She's not used to people like you," he added. "People like me, strong, direct. You don't pretend." I laughed softly. "Son, that's not strength. That's just running out of patience for polite lies." We bought new curtain rods, a few light bulbs, and some mums for the porch. When we got home, Kelly was baking. The smell of cinnamon filled the kitchen again, the same smell from years ago when Ethan was a boy. For the first time since they moved in, the house felt alive. But peace doesn't last long when there's a wound under it. That weekend, while cleaning the spare room, I found a folded letter in the trash can. It was from a real estate agent offering to buy houses in our neighborhood for cash. My name wasn't on it, but theirs was. I waited until evening to ask, "Are you two planning to sell?" Kelly's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Ethan's eyes darted to her, then to me. "It was just junk mail," he said. "Junk mail doesn't address you by name." Kelly put her fork down carefully. "It's nothing, Margaret. We were just curious what the market looked like." "The market," I said, leaning back. "That's one word for it." No one spoke for a while. I let the silence work. It has a way of peeling truth like paint. After dinner, Ethan came to my room. "Mom, please don't overreact." "I'm not," I said. "I'm remembering." Remembering what? How it felt the first time someone tried to take my home from me. He sighed. "We're not trying to take anything from you." "Then don't talk to people who want to." He rubbed his temples. "You make everything sound so heavy." "Because it is," I said quietly. "You just haven't learned the weight yet." That night, I walked the hallway looking at the shadows stretching across the floor. I stopped at their door. I could hear them whispering, arguing softly about me. I didn't stay to listen. I'd done enough of that in my marriage, hearing things I couldn't fix. The next morning, a realtor's card appeared on the entry table. Kelly said she didn't know how it got there. Ethan said he'd throw it away. I said nothing. But I did something else. I went down to the county clerk's office that afternoon and requested copies of the property documents. The clerk, an older man with kind eyes, smiled when he saw my name. "Mrs. Nolan, this file's been in our system since 2002. You've held this title longer than most people stay married." "Then I guess I'll keep holding it," I said. That evening, Kelly came to my room. "We didn't call that realtor," she said. I looked up from my Bible. "I know." Her eyes softened with surprise. "You do?" "I've lived long enough to know when something's a test," I said. "The question is who's being tested, you or me?" She didn't answer, but I saw her shoulders relax. The next day, she started moving my old photos back into the living room. Not all of them, just a few. But she placed them carefully, as if each one might break. When Ethan came home and saw them, he smiled. "Looks better," he said. "It looks honest," I replied. That night, I wrote in my journal a habit I'd started when David was sick. Love changes, but respect should never have to. The next morning, Kelly brought me coffee in bed. Real coffee. No candle smell, no polite distance. Just coffee. "Thank you," I said. She smiled shyly. "You built something good here, Margaret. We just didn't know how to live in it." I nodded. Most people don't until it's gone. The rest of the week passed quietly. The roof was repaired, the air cooled, and the mums bloomed again. One evening, Ethan asked if I wanted to take a drive through the old part of town, the one where he learned to ride a bike. We stopped outside the diner on Maple Street. He said you used to bring me here after school. "I did," I said. "You used to order pancakes even at 4 in the afternoon." He smiled. "I remember. You'd tell me, you can't fix a bad day, but you can sweeten it." We sat there for a while, not talking about papers or houses or ownership, just breathing. When we came home, Kelly had left the porch light on, the kind of small gesture that feels like forgiveness, even if no one says the word. I realized something. As I stood there looking at that light, this house might not feel like mine the way it used to, but it didn't have to. It was still home as long as someone inside remembered how to keep it warm. A few days later, I woke to the sound of a hammer. For a second, my heart leapt. I thought it was David out in the garage again. Then I remembered where I was and what year it was. The hammering came from Ethan, trying to fix a loose gutter. I smiled to myself, though a little part of me wondered if he even knew which end of the nail to hold. I made coffee and watched from the window. Kelly stood in the yard, arms crossed, giving instructions. She didn't notice me. When Ethan climbed down from the ladder, she pointed toward the mailbox and said something sharp. He nodded, like a boy caught misbehaving. For a moment, I didn't see my grown son. I saw the teenager who once promised he'd always take care of me. That afternoon, Kelly left for a hair appointment, and Ethan stayed behind to finish repairs. He came into the kitchen, wiping sweat off his forehead, looking uneasy. "Mom, he said I talked to the bank." I put down my coffee. "And?" "They said we might get a better loan if the deed is under both our names. You'd still be on it, just shared." "Shared," I repeated, "like a casserole dish." He groaned. "It's not like that." "Oh, but it is, Ethan. You don't borrow someone's life's work just because it looks convenient." He stared at me, and for the first time I saw a flash of his father in him, the same stubborn set of the jaw. "I'm just trying to build a future, Mom." I nodded slowly, "and I'm trying not to erase the past." He didn't answer, just walked out to the garage, slamming the door behind him. I sat there a while, listening to the echo. That night the rain came back steady and cold. I stayed up reading, unable to shake a feeling that something was shifting again. Around midnight, headlights swept across the living room. A car pulled into the driveway. It was a man in a blazer holding a folder. Through the window I saw Kelly greet him, shaking his hand quickly before glancing toward the house. I waited until morning. When I came downstairs, she was cheerful, almost too cheerful. "Good morning, Margaret. I met with a financial advisor last night, nothing big." I raised an eyebrow. "Financial advisor?" "At midnight," she faltered. "He works late." "So does guilt," I said. She opened her mouth, then shut it. Later that day, I found another envelope on the counter. This one wasn't just papers. It was a full contract, typed and notarized with a sticky note that said, "Please sign before Friday. It'll help everyone." Everyone but me, I thought. I folded the papers neatly and placed them in the top drawer of my dresser under a photo of David. Then I took a walk down the street. The neighborhood had changed, new cars, trimmed lawns, all the signs of people who believed money could fix anything. Mrs. Turner, my neighbor of 30 years, waved from her porch. "You doing all right, honey?" I smiled, still standing. She chuckled. "That's half the battle at our age." When I got home, Kelly and Ethan were in the living room talking in low voices. Kelly looked up. "We thought about moving," she said suddenly. I stopped in the doorway. "Moving where?" "Somewhere bigger," Ethan added quickly. "If we sell this place, we could—" I held up a hand. "You'd sell my house." Kelly crossed her arms. "You keep saying it's yours, but we live here too." "Yes," I said, "and rent-free as I recall." Ethan exhaled hard. "Mom, please, don't make this ugly." "It's already ugly," I said softly. "You just painted over it." He turned away, muttering something about how I never trusted anyone. Kelly followed him upstairs, heels clicking like accusations. I sat on the couch, the silence pressing around me. For a moment, I thought about leaving, packing a bag, driving to Ruth's farm, and letting them deal with the mess they'd made. But something inside me refused. This was my story. I wasn't going to walk out before the ending. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the blinds. Kelly and Ethan had left early. On the counter sat a note. "Will be home late. Please consider the papers." Instead, I called the bank. I'd like to verify something I told the woman on the line. She confirmed what I suspected. Ethan and Kelly had already tried to apply for a home equity loan using the property as collateral. My property. The loan had been denied because the deed wasn't in their names. "Would you like to file a fraud alert?" the woman asked. I thought for a long second. No, not yet. That evening, I made dinner, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the meal Ethan always loved as a boy. When they walked in, the smell hit them first. Kelly blinked, surprised. "I thought you'd be mad," she said. "I am," I answered. "But I cook better when I'm angry." We ate in silence until Ethan finally said, "We shouldn't have gone to the bank." "No," I said. "You shouldn't have forgotten who built this home." Kelly stared at her plate. "We were scared, Margaret. What if something happened to you? We'd lose everything." I set my fork down. "You already did. You lost my trust." No one spoke after that. I cleared the table, washed the dishes, and went upstairs. Later that night, I slipped out to the porch with a cup of tea. The house was quiet, the air cool. Across the street, porch lights glowed like lanterns. I thought about David, about how he used to say, "A house isn't built by walls, it's built by promises." I took a deep breath and whispered into the night, "I'm done keeping promises no one else remembers." Inside, the papers waited on the counter again. I let them sit. The next move I decided would be mine. A week passed before anyone mentioned the papers again. It was early October, the kind of Indiana autumn that smells like apples and cold soil. The air through the open kitchen window carried the sound of rakes and faraway church bells. I'd started sleeping better, mostly because I stopped trying to win every conversation. There comes a point in life when you learn silence can do the talking for you. Kelly and Ethan kept their distance. We shared breakfasts with polite words, but nothing deeper. I stayed in my room most afternoons, sorting old boxes, touching pieces of a life that had meaning, before signatures and titles started dividing it. I found David's watch stopped at 4:23 and left it that way. Some things don't need fixing. On Thursday, Ethan came home early. He looked tired, older somehow. "Mom, can we talk?" he said. "Always," I told him. He sat down at the table, the same one where I'd once taught him to spell his name in macaroni letters. "We made a mess," he said. Kelly was scared, and I let that fear talk louder than you. I studied his face, searching for the boy I used to chase through the yard with a towel for a cape. He was still there under the stubble and regret. "What are you afraid of, Ethan?" He shrugged. "Losing control, I guess. Losing you." "I don't know," I said quietly. "You can't lose what's not supposed to belong to you in the first place. Family isn't ownership, son. It's stewardship." He rubbed his eyes, nodding slowly. That weekend, the roofers came back to finish the last patch of shingles. Kelly brought them lemonade, her attempt at peace. When she turned to me, she said, "The insurance company finally processed the claim. Thank you for handling that." "I just did what needed to be done," I replied. She hesitated. "I shouldn't have pushed so hard. I thought we were protecting you." I know I said, meeting her eyes, but protection without respect feels a lot like control. That landed. She didn't argue. That night, the house smelled of paint and sawdust. Ethan poured me tea and asked if I wanted to watch the old home videos. We sat on the couch, the repaired ceiling above us, the projector light flickering. There was David young and laughing, holding baby Ethan. And there was me, thinner, happier, unaware of what was coming. Kelly watched too. Halfway through, she whispered, "You really built this place, didn't you?" "Yes," I said, "brick by brick, dollar by dollar." When the video ended, she reached for my hand. "I'd like to help keep it that way." I squeezed her hand gently. "Then we'll both have to learn how to share without taking." Days passed quietly after that. No more notes, no more papers. I found Kelly dusting the mantel one morning, careful not to move the photos. The house felt balanced again, like an apology had been accepted, even if the words hadn't been spoken. On Sunday, we had dinner together: roast beef, mashed potatoes, apple pie. Ethan raised his glass. "To home," he said. Kelly added, "and to guests who know how to stay." I smiled. To family who learn how to stay even when it's not easy. Later that evening, after the dishes were done, I stepped outside. The porch light glowed warm against the falling leaves. I could see my reflection in the window. A woman, older. maybe lonelier in some ways, but stronger in others. I whispered softly, "David, you'd be proud." When I went back inside, I saw a small envelope on my pillow. Inside was a folded deed. My name was still the only one printed on it, but beneath, written in Ethan's handwriting, were 5 words. "It's yours always, Mom. Promise." I sat on the edge of the bed and let the tears come, quiet, grateful ones. The next morning, I cooked breakfast early. When they came downstairs, I smiled. "You two sleep well." Ethan grinned. "Best night in weeks." "Good," I said. "Because I've been thinking. Maybe I'll move my things into the guest room for a while. Give you two some space." Kelly looked startled. "You don't have to." "I want to," I interrupted gently. "Sometimes staying means knowing when to step back. I'll still be here, just not in the middle of everything." And for the first time, I saw real relief in Kelly's face, not from getting her way, but from being understood. Later that day, I moved into the guest room. It was smaller, quieter, with a window that faced the maple tree. I hung one photograph on the wall, me, Ethan, and David in front of the house 20 years ago. The frame was cracked, but the picture inside still smiled. That evening, Ethan helped me carry the rocking chair to the porch. We sat together, watching the last light fade, the leaves falling slow and sure. "You were right," he said softly. "We're all just guests." I nodded. The good kind if we're lucky. Inside the house was still the kind of peace that doesn't need anyone to explain it. I rocked slowly, the chair creaking beneath me, and thought about all the homes I'd built inside my heart. Some I lost, some I rebuilt. And maybe that was the point. Home isn't what you own, it's what you honor. When November rolled in, the mornings carried that cold Indiana hush that feels older than the town itself. The air smelled of wet leaves and chimney smoke. Most people think fall is about endings, but I've learned it's really about reckoning, about seeing what survived the summer and what didn't. I had moved into the guest room by then. Kelly insisted on helping me set it up. Fresh curtains, clean sheets, even a vase of dried hydrangeas. "It's temporary," she said, with a smile that almost reached her eyes. I smiled back. "Aren't we all?" Something had changed between us. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was respect trying to take root. We talked more, not about paperwork or insurance, but about simple things, recipes, garden soil, even TV shows. For the first time, I felt less like a ghost haunting my own home. Ethan was busier now. He'd started doing extra shifts trying to repair the financial hole the roof damage had left. I saw the fatigue in his shoulders, the worry lines deepening. One evening, he came home late, dropped his keys on the table, and sat down across from me. "I've been thinking," he said, "maybe we should put your name on everything officially, so no one can ever question it again." I looked at him surprised. "That's not necessary, Ethan." "It is," he said. "You were right. We messed up. I want to make it right before it's too late." I smiled. "It's never too late to do the right thing, son. But sometimes doing it quietly speaks louder." He nodded. "Kelly agrees." That night, I found Kelly sitting on the porch swing, wrapped in a blanket. "You're going to catch cold," I told her. She laughed softly. "I was waiting for you." Waiting? I wanted to say, "Thank you for not giving up on us, for staying." I sat beside her. The porch creaked the same sound it had made under David's boots decades ago. "I almost left," I admitted. "I know," she said. I could feel it. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind brush through the trees. Then she said, "I used to think owning a house meant security. But this feels more like home than anything I've known." "That's because a home isn't about walls," I said. "It's about how people treat each other inside them." The next day, I went into town to visit Ruth, my sister. She still lived on the family farm south of Bloomington. When I told her everything that had happened, she listened without interrupting. Finally, she said, "You did what Mama always told us to do. Let grace finish what anger starts." On my way back, I stopped at the hardware store and bought new porch lights. Ethan helped me install them that evening. When we flipped the switch, warm light spilled over the front steps. The house looked softer, somehow alive again. The next Sunday, we invited a few neighbors for coffee. Mrs. Turner came bringing her famous peach cobbler. Kelly served everyone like a hostess trying to earn her place, and maybe she was. When someone complimented the house, she said, "Margaret built it. We're just keeping it warm." I pretended not to tear up. Later that night, after everyone left, Ethan sat beside me at the table. "Mom," he said quietly, "I never understood how much a house costs, not in money, but in heart." I reached for his hand. "You just learned the hardest lesson of all, that sometimes the people who give you everything don't want repayment. They just want to be remembered." He squeezed my hand. "I won't forget again." For the first time in months, I felt peace settle over the house like a blanket. Winter crept in early that year. The first snow came before Thanksgiving. Kelly decorated the porch with string lights, and Ethan brought home a small pine tree. When he set it in the living room, he asked, "Where should we put the old angel?" "Top of the tree, same as always," I said. Kelly hesitated. "Would you do it this year?" I nodded. When I reached up to place the angel, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. Silver hair, soft lines, tired but alive. For the first time, I saw myself not as the woman who almost lost everything, but as the one who kept it standing. On Christmas morning, I woke early and made pancakes. The three of us ate together in the quiet sunlight spilling across the table. No one talked about deeds or documents or ownership. We didn't need to. After breakfast, Ethan handed me a small box. Inside was a silver keychain engraved with the words, "Home is where Mom is." I laughed through the tears. "You two are learning," I said. Kelly smiled. "We have a good teacher." That evening, after they'd gone to bed, I stepped out to the porch again. The yard was covered in white, the lights glowing soft against the snow. I rocked gently in my chair, the same one David built for me our first winter here. I thought about all the years that had led to this moment, the sacrifices, the heartbreak, the forgiveness, and I realized that the house in its own quiet way had taught all of us something. You can lose ownership but still keep love. You can be called a guest and still belong. As the wind carried the smell of pine and smoke, I whispered what I always told Ethan when he was little. "We're all just guests, son. The lucky ones leave the place better than they found it." And with that, I smiled, leaned back, and let the house rest.